Your writing project 1 is a memo. Even though email has become common in the workplace, memos are still important. You write them to peers, subordinates, and supervisors in your organization from the first days of your career until you retire. Even if you work in an organization that uses email extensively, you will still compose print messages that convey your point with brevity, clarity, and tact. Later, this chapter discusses the choice of whether to send a message as a memo or an email. Because many activities are competing for their time, readers expect information to be related as quickly and clearly as possible. Memos should be as self-contained as possible. If they are part of an ongoing series of correspondence, include enough information in the first sentences so that your reader immediately recognizes the context. Use headings and lists to help your reader find the information that he or she needs. While memos should be concise, they should be complete enough to be clear, and they should address your reader's concerns. The section on memos is inside of Chapter 6 on correspondence. And the chapter objectives here, they focus on ABC format, strategies for writing positive, neutral, negative, and persuasive messages, each of which, this is something you probably want to read 3 times, writing positive, negative, neutral, and persuasive messages, because the advice here, the suggestions about what to do to organize this kind of information for your reader and still maintain your reader's goodwill, this is invaluable. Read it and then read it again. Special considerations for writing letters, correspondence to readers, special considerations for memos, and so forth. ABC format for email. This is just loaded with information you are going to use 100 times a year, if not 3 times that. This year, next year, and all of the years to come. You'll be writing correspondence. You already are in the habit, I imagine, of writing emails. Have you been writing good emails or not? Well, read this chapter and ask yourself. If you've been sending professors emails that are 300 words long, you have been doing it wrong. Just saying. Okay, so I'm saying this chapter will help you. So general guidelines for correspondence. Letters convey your message to readers outside of your organization. Okay, so that's a letter. Letter is a thing that a company or organization writes to its clientele, its patients, its customers. Just as memos are an effective way to get things done within your organization. So memos don't go out to customers. Memos are internal. Only your coworkers are going to read those. Coworkers, bosses, subordinates. An email is a way to communicate quickly with readers inside and outside of your organization. So these might be crafted only for internal use, they might be crafted only for external use, or possibly for both. By applying the guidelines in this chapter, you can master the craft of writing effective correspondence. So this is really, really useful stuff. It talks about knowing your purpose, it talks about knowing your readers, and it gives a lot of detail that is very helpful in terms of writing correspondence, because it's a special kind of writing. It talks to you about format, basically the shapes of things. Here we go. Memos with minor variations. All memos look much the same. The obligatory date, to, from, subject must be there. It hangs at the top left margin in whatever order your organization requires. These 4 lines allow you to dispense with the lengthy introductory passages that you see in more formal writing. And there's information about letters and memos, that some format conventions apply to both. Reference initials, enclosure notations, multiple page headings, and how emails are similar and different. Similar to and different from those types. Letterhead for the organization, 2 or more blank lines, date of letter. Okay, so this is for a letter. and it gives you a very nice kind of a template for letter writing. And here's a kind of another style. There we go. Facsimile reference if you're sending a memo through a fax machine to other employees in other places. Correspondence guidelines follow the ABC format for all correspondence: abstract, body, and conclusion. Kind of like the beginning and middle and end of academic writing, if you like, the kinds of essays that you've been writing for your classes for a long time. But the abstract tends to be very considerably more direct than your typical college introduction. Abstract introduces the purpose, and it usually gives a summary of the main points to follow. It concludes one or two short paragraphs, usually one, two if it's more complex. The body contains supporting details and thus makes up the largest part of the letter or memo. Deductive pattern for paragraphs, it's in other places called top-down, general to specific. It's a very common way of describing it, so you can read about this. Lists that break up the text. You might want to use bullet points. Headings are used to divide information, especially if the work is longer, but sometimes you can even use headings if it's only a page or two, to separate pieces of information so that your readers can find what they're looking for really, really quickly. And then, of course, the conclusion. 3 C's strategy for correspondence. You need to capture the reader's attention, you need to convince the reader with supporting points, and you need, at the end, contact. Solidify your relationship with the reader with an offer to follow up on the correspondence. Okay, so those are the 3 C's. Correspondence guideline number 6, it stresses the you attitude. Begin writing correspondence by looking at the subject from your reader's perspective. Ask yourself, what will interest my reader, and what does my reader want to accomplish? For example, you should perform the following tasks. Try to anticipate questions your reader might raise. You can even replace pronouns I and me and we with you and your. So make the piece of writing in the second person, from the second person perspective, you. Use attachments if you have details. Certainly be diplomatic. Without a tactful tone, all of your planning and drafting will be wasted. Because remember, the purpose of written communication is really pretty much always to establish relationships, build trust. That's always a kind of an implied part of it. So choose words that persuade and not demand. Don't talk down to readers. Don't tell readers what to do. Be tactful. Be especially careful with memos that are written to subordinates. You don't want to come off with a commanding tone. If you're too authoritarian, no one will listen to you. Generally speaking, people don't like to be treated like they're lesser. Nobody likes that. So edit carefully. Because letters, memos, and emails are short, editing errors may be obvious to readers. Take special care to avoid the following errors. You don't want any misspelled words. You certainly do not want to get your reader's name wrong if you were addressing someone directly. You don't want to get a job title wrong. And certainly when you're doing this out in the world, make sure that the person you're writing to, that you have the right address. Okay, check your grammar, check your writing style, avoid stuffy phrases, long sentences with more than one main and one dependent clause. Those can be difficult in a letter. Usually, it's a short piece of writing. It's supposed to be direct to the point and informative. So you don't want to cause your readers to wade through your sentences to figure out what your point is. Be direct. Simple English. Phrases that make presumptions, such as thanking you in advance for. Negative tone. We cannot, I won't, please don't hesitate to. Avoid nots and no's in your writing. Actually, always avoid them in your writing, whether it's a letter or not. Last point is crucial. It gets more attention later in this chapter. Use the editing stage to rewrite any passage. passage. Okay, so as you can see, there's a whole lot of pointers and tips and just good information in this chapter. And so you should definitely read it. And it gives you really good, these blue boxes, ABC format for positive correspondence was the other one, correspondence guidelines, and they're all over the place. It's really, really good. Okay, so good luck to you.